energy systems of the human body and how interconnected they are. So if one system is injured or broken, we can say, by actually focusing on another system, we can restore the function of the broken system, hopefully to the quality that it was before an injury or a trauma, or better. And that is really what happened to me miraculously in my car accident. If you look back, the Tobin Osuski Taking Back Consciousness story, a former athlete of mine did a little video several years ago on some of my story and the accident I went through and how I healed myself, despite all the odds that were saying I would not. Now, I learned over many years, the 7 years that we had Temple Kinesis, the few years before, and studying philosophically all this stuff of what kind of may have happened to me on the quantum and spiritual level, energetic, magnetic, kind of deep submolecular level, and then manifested on the surface that now I'm doing advanced gymnastics and things I never did before I was in this traumatic accident that almost prevented me from ever walking again or thinking again. So after Temple Kinesis, I started working with a population that had been recently paralyzed or lost the ability to walk and was trying to regain the ability to walk, and also, several other very unique populations, those, people with heart conditions that couldn't necessarily do the same physical activities. I was trying to figure out ways to help these beings heal despite their physical limitations at the time. What systems could we work on that would then in turn give them more potential to get back their abilities? Now through that, I also learned that there are a lot of specific exercises that all of us can do that can benefit every aspect of our lives, specifically reattuning our energy body or our perfected higher self that kind of sits here in an electromagnetic frequency that's much higher than the physical density we live at, existing as a spiritual blueprint for how our body creates itself moment to moment. Now, when we damage something physically, that limits our body's ability to flow that spiritual or divine energy into our physical system and allow us to maintain all of our abilities. Hence, trauma happening to us one way or another, and the ability for the person or the soul to overcome that trauma and transmute it, as they say in alchemy, into a greater state or a more improved state. I'm not going to get too deep into the spiritual stuff. There's been other videos in the series about breath work and about visualization and certain types of meditations. And there are other videos in the series that go over specific yoga poses and things that will enhance the ability to flow that energy through you. This specific video is Kegel exercises, and I kind of drew it up as Kegel exercises for men, but this can be used for anybody. There are specific pelvic exercises that women have been known to do, yoni balls, yoni eggs I should say, and contractions and releases of specific pelvic muscles. This kind of goes more to the broad scale because I used a lot of these things myself in rehabbing because I was having performance issues that I thought were like a permanent thing or a chemical thing or a psychological thing that I had to figure out how to get over, but they were actually some physical nerve compressions that I was not conditioning properly or over conditioning in the sports that I was playing and then not stretching properly, and they were creating a muscular contraction, permanent like tightness around certain pelvic muscles that were preventing me from maintaining a hard-on or getting as hard as I should be genetically and for my age. So there was a lot of things I looked into to improve myself, and I started to notice that many years later when I was working with paralyzed clients that their partners mentioned after our physical therapy sessions and some of these exercises we were doing that they were achieving erections, and it was maintaining for a long time, and they didn't have any control over that area technically, but because of the activations we were doing neurochemically and neuromuscularly in the areas, it was translating to erections and arousal, which was a very cool kind of side effect because these are people that didn't necessarily think, at least at that time, fresh out of injuries, that they would be able to do so again, and it was happening kind of naturally. So it was a pleasant surprise for everybody, and it brought smiles to their face, all of our faces for that matter. So now I'm going to go over just a few of those exercises that we are able to do. The first is a plank, which you can either do in push-up position or on the knees. A lot of them we would have to do stuff on our knees because they didn't necessarily have control, where I would be holding their hips and they would go back and just try to tap the knee. And we could do it from full plank position, and you just go tap your knee. And if you're not flexible, you can kind of bring it in a little bit. But these exercises actually build some of the auxiliary muscles around the center of the pelvis and help support both nerve decompression and muscle flexibility. And also, a lot of our energy is always concentrated in the center, and this allows it to disperse out to the sides and free up the flow of energy in the direct center of the pelvic region. So another one is kind of a flow of yoga poses. So you go from plank to cobra, where you're extending your spine, your hips are down to the ground, you're rotating your eyes upwards so your spine elongates, and then to downward dog. So this is a good hamstring and glute stretch, and at the same time it's opening up the pelvis and the spinal column, and then we can repeat that a few times. And this is a technique if you have a in rhythm and flexible partner, you can also do with a partner in the bedroom. All right, so Superman plank also can be done either on the hands and knees, on the elbows, or we'll just demonstrate up on the push-up position. So it's alternating limb raises with a little stabilization, so you know you're not using momentum. And this creates a transverse reaction through the core of muscle activations. So if there was a linear imbalance, left side's overworking and the right side's taking a free ride, this exercise will get things back into tune and harmony and balance and allow that energy to flow properly the way we want it. Plank jacks or donkey kicks. So a plank jack can be done either in push-up position, or I'll do this one, demonstrate on the elbows, and you're just jumping open and back close. So as you notice, this has got a hip opening aspect, and then it's got a groin contraction aspect. So it's also strengthening that pelvic girdle more on the center aspect and not so auxiliary anymore. So that's a fantastic one, and these things can be done in reps or for time, whatever you feel comfortable. Do it to exhaustion and then repeat if you got the energy for it. So X plank, you can start in regular plank position, and what we're going to do is walk out so the arms are really wide and feet are wide, and this one can be held for a certain amount of time, or you can continue to go out and in different patterns, and it's going to condition and work the same muscles just in different ways. So I'd recommend switching it up as much as possible. Reverse plank with leg raises. Now we're getting into central pelvic girdle stuff. So a weak pelvic girdle, strong pelvic girdle, and once you're up and engaged, you've got those glutes, hamstrings, groin, a little bit of your quads, some of your calves engaged, the lower back muscles. You can start to do alternating leg raises, and again, keeping those hips up as high as you can, keeping that pelvic girdle working hard. This is one of the better, more beneficial ones, and fantastic to repeat daily. And then we continue to transition into that kind of more intimate positioning and Kegel exercise wise, and this is where we're centering everything into those actual central channel pelvic muscles. So we're going to come back. I'm going to show you from two angles. So feet are about shoulders width apart, maybe a little more narrow for this one. And you're going to drive up into a bridge as high as you can, squeezing those glutes, finding balance, and then contracting and relaxing. And you can either repeat this in repetition or try to hold for as long as possible like you would a plank. And I'm just going to show you from a different angle. You can either hold it for as long as you're able to, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, or you can do repetitions and find all those different angles where you may have a little more lack of flexibility or a little more strength, and then kind of develop your weaknesses into strength. So those were Kegel exercises for everyone, but specifically for men. If you're having any type of performance issues and you don't want to take medicines, you actually want to solve the issue, this is how you can solve that issue and become a better performer in all aspects of the world, especially the bedroom.